solution to your problem until ultimately you ended up before me. And it is your faith that drives you, that makes you whole. When I think then of this text, I can't help but think of the greater. The greater is in you. And what it says then is, no matter how tough things seem to be on the outside, and no matter how difficult things are on the parameters of my journey, there is something that is inside of me that is greater than whatever it is that I have to face. And if that is so, then somehow it forces me to believe that the circumstance that I find myself in will not overpower me, but sooner than later I'm going to come out of this, and God is going to get extreme glory in my victory. The comparison is already there because they suggest a comparison. Whenever you're dealing with powers, you're dealing with power encounters, and it's who are you going to back? Who are you going to side with becomes the issue. Am I going to side with the imaginative conceptualization of God, or am I going to side with what seems to be overwhelming and overpowering me? Am I going to walk in this room with my problems and come in here complaining, or am I going to walk in this room with my problems and come in here praising? Because I have given myself over to the fact that what's going on in my life is just a setup for God to show just how powerful he is. And for me to believe him in the middle of a negative circumstance is for me to be with him in a relationship that says, I do not judge my relationship with you by what I'm going through. I judge my relationship with you by what I'm able to handle and what I will ultimately put under my feet. I want to preach to some folk who believe that no matter what they're in now, a change is on the way. That's what I want. I want to talk to believers. It is, you see, because the comparison is obvious. And the greater and the great. And the greater the great is the greater the greater is. Did you get it? The greater the great is, the greater the greater is. Because you want to be strong, but you don't want to have a challenge. The issue here is your strength is only shown in the middle of the challenge. And he is telling me this so psychologically I can understand that the greater is not on the outside, but the greater is on the inside. Oh God, I feel it here. It is a psychosis then that goes with handling what you got to deal with. There's a psychological disposition that goes with handling the things that are around you, because the greater is by faith, because it's not perceived sensually. God, I thank you, because what you have allowed me then is the freedom to sit wherever I am and just believe that there is more power in me than what I'm dealing with on the outside of me. I am a survivor. I'm not a quitter, because I'm a survivor, because I'm a believer. So I don't throw up my hands and let something overwhelm me. I fight until the very end, because I'm looking for a turnaround at every moment. And the reason I praise him all the time is he can deliver me any time. Oh, I wish I had a believer in the house. I will preach until the devil gets mad. I feel the contradistinctive. Yes, greater. There is a contradistinction here that I feel, because the survival of my being implies that the greater is in me, and that is the fact. And what Jesus could not seem to tolerate was the fact that you could be around his power all the time and never act as if you recognize who you're with. You know, you got to know who you're with. Oh, yes, you got to know who you're with. It's good to know the capacity of the individuals you are around, because it's not always what you have the capability of doing. It's who you have the privilege of being with. I found out that I don't have to do everything when Jesus can do anything. So because I can't do it doesn't mean it can't be done. And I'm entitled to believe on the level I believe, and I refuse to let people who are negative and small-minded decide how I ought to operate. Because every encounter is a power encounter. It's either you're going to give way to the devil or you're going to give way to God. It's either you're going to accept the negative or you're going to accept the positive. It's either you're going to believe that you're already healed or you're going to accept that you're already dead. And the answer is, as long as I've got life in me, I've got a fight coming on, because greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. Just touch somebody, say, I'm coming out of it. It looks bad, but I'm coming out of it. Where does the power of being become manifest, and how can it be measured? From an ontological point of view, that's the question, and Paul Tillich answers it by saying that the power of being becomes manifest only in the process in which it actualizes its power, unquote. I think I ought to quote that again. The power of being becomes manifest only in the process in which it actualizes its power. In other words, you have to put a demand on it. You will never know how strong you are in a vacuum. You only know how strong you are when there is a demand that is put on your life. I propose to you that you have power you haven't used yet, because the circumstance has not yet arisen to make a withdrawal on the power that God has already deposited. God does not wait till the situation arises to deposit power in your life, because the Spirit maketh intercession with groanings that cannot be uttered. In other words, God has steadily been supplying you for the circumstance that you haven't yet come into. And when you come into the circumstance, he's not going to give you power then. You will already have the power to deal with the circumstance. And that's why he is frustrated with you and I. How long must I be with you and you don't know what you have? You ain't got to wait around to cast devils out. All you got to do is believe, and out they go. Feel the strength of God here. It is real only in actualization. It's only real in an encounter. And it's only real when other bearers of power come around. Don't you know that all relationships are power encounters? Have you had a relationship lately? If you had one, it was a power encounter. Husband and wives don't live together without power encounters. Power upon power. You don't raise your children without power encounters, because children will challenge who you are. That's why moms who don't have fathers in the house have a difficult time sometimes trying to raise boys, because when they get to a certain age, it is just natural that they're going to test test to see how far they can go. When you got two bulls in the pen, you're going to have a clash. I wish you'd understand. That's why fathers, after you get to a certain stage, they'll tell you it's time to go. This is my house. You know, whereas mothers smother, fathers put you out because there's a power encounter. Boys and children will test to see how far they can go with you. And if you don't draw the line in the sand, they'll drive you crazy. I wish I could talk to you. And then, Lord, don't let them grow up in your house and be grown in your house. And you paying all the bills and they won't sneak some woman in or some man in. Let him pay the bills, baby, if he want to come up in here. Y'all excuse me, that's real personal. I'm sorry. But the point is that there's always a tug. There's always a pull. You can't have a relationship with somebody and they not test to see how far they can go. Want to go on vacation when their rent needs to be paid. I wish I could talk to you here. Want to buy Louboutin when they need to pay the light bill. Pay the light bill first and then come ask for something else. I wish I could talk to you. It's always a power encounter. How much you gonna sacrifice? And what have you done for me lately? And how much do you love me? It's a power encounter. And anytime there's a power encounter, you got to learn to draw the line in the sand. And you got to tell the devil so far but no further. I'm sick of taking what you put out. And what God says is, if you have the power around you, you've got to understand who you're with. And I don't need to suffer with you this long, because if you only believe, all things that have escaped you will come within the parameters of your reach, because all you need to do is believe and it shall come to pass. Can I preach like I feel it? This power then is dynamic, and because of the fact that you were here, it suggests strongly that you have overcome something. For me to get up this morning and walk into this place and can barely see is the fact that I have something to overcome. The fact that you got up today and were able to get into this house, you had to overcome something to get here. I don't know why you feel that you're a weakling. Ain't nothing weak about you. You are an overcomer because you still are clothed and in your right mind. Do you know how many folk have gone crazy dealing with less stuff than you're dealing with? But the reason you're still holding on to your faith is because you are more than conqueror. Oh, I'm going to preach this till the devil runs out of place. What Jesus says now is to be alive is power. Just to be able to breathe is power. So power then is the ability to cause or to prevent change. Anytime you want to change your habits, that's power. And you have to have courage to change who you are, because you don't change who you are without the power of the new man overriding the old man. You're in a struggle every day just to be you, because everybody around you is trying to make you what they want you to be. And if you ever be yourself, it's because you have the power to withstand everybody else's opinion and be who God has called you to be. You can't lose yourself in everybody else. You have to contribute what God has given you to contribute. That means sometimes you got to step up to the plate and be alone. But it ain't wrong to be alone if alone gives me the power to be me. I feel like preaching. I feel the Holy Ghost. I'm talking to somebody here that needs to break out into who you are and stop being covered by who everybody else is. The power then has two dimensions, and one dimension is potentiality or latent power. This is power that has not yet been fully developed. It is the ability to cause